Operations Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chemo.
Yes.
Tell us in short,
Yes.
what's the role of Kenya Airports Authority?
Okay, in a nutshell, Kenya Airports Authority is the airport operator. It is mandated to administer, control, and manage airports, civilian airports in the country.
So you manage all airports within the country?
Yes, within the country.
Including where we are, Jomo Kenyatta International
Including
Airport.
Jomo Kenyatta International
Thank you
Airport.
very much.
Thank you.
Now, I want you to explain to the public, how do you facilitate our passengers here at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport?
Okay.
Yes.
Kenya Airports Authority being the airport operator, we have several airports. This is being our main airport.
Yes.
We provide facilitative infrastructure for aviation services. Yes, and the aviation services, of course, include the airlines, catering services, government agencies, because as an airport operator, we cannot achieve facilitation of passengers minus all those organizations that support us into delivering customer satisfaction in our airports. Yes.
Thank you. What are some of the agencies that are involved in the passenger journey within the airport?
There are several agencies that are involved. One of them is immigration. We have customs. We have port health. We have other government agencies like anti-narcotics, security agencies like the police, who help us ensure that security on the land side is okay. And many other agencies like even taxi drivers, like passenger facilitation begins to airport, are all lumped together to deliver customer experience in airports. Yes.
So in essence, you are the landlord of everybody else who works within the airport.
Exactly, we are.
From the airline to all government agencies.
Completely, yes, we are.
Thank you very much, Madam Chemo. Now to our viewers, I would like to remind you to listen keenly and engage us, because we are going to give away gift bags to people who respond to our questions correctly. And our first question for the day: do you know the difference between Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Civil Aviation Authority? Remember to follow us on our social media handles and engage us. And now, Madam Dorcas, we can see so many gadgets here. Can you explain to us the process of now facilitating the passenger?
Thank you, I'll gladly do it.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
This is our initial security checkpoint.
Yes.
Where a passenger comes.
Yes.
We have our security officers waiting upon you.
Yes.
As a customer comes, they are required to remove their shoes.
Yes.
When they get here. Remove all the metallic items that they have. If they have a computer,
yes,
they have to remove and place it in a different tray.
Yes.
And then it will now go through the process
yes,
of security. Yes, and you can see from our left we have prohibited items that you are not supposed to travel with.
Okay.
And because of this COVID era now, make sure that you sanitize all this immediately after use. Now this one is a walk-through machine. In case you have anything that is not required,
yes,
metallic or whatever, it will peep. And then the officer on the other side
yes,
will do a special search. After the items have gone through the X-ray machine,
yes,
and in case there is any dutable item that has been identified,
yes,
we normally have our customs partners on standby to check on the items that are dutable. Yes.
So the next step from here is the customs department.
Exactly, that is now where we are going to.
Can you take us please to the customs department?
Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hello sir.
Yes, sir.
Would you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, the organization you work for, and what you do.
Thank you very much. I'm Robert Kirer, Head of Customs at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, passenger terminals. Customs, we play a major role at the departure. We do enforce the customs law, the various acts or other laws, and various conventions. And we do that jointly with the other security agencies at the airport. We work with Kenya Airports Authority, security agencies. We work with the police. We work with the intelligence services And basically, we are doing that to protect our border. We are doing that for us to be able not to check the smuggling of illegal wildlife trade, the products like ivory, bulk cash smuggling. We do that to check on smuggling of high-value goods, which could be taken out of the country. That include gold. Basically, we are here as a border control agent to ensure that no smuggling activities happens in our airport.
Now, if I'm a passenger traveling out of the country, how would you handle me?
When you come in as a passenger, you would find customs at the checkpoints working with Kenya Ports Authority just to check on what you have in your bags and what you're supposed to declare. And if you have any items that you're supposed to declare to customs, at that point you're supposed to make that declaration to the customs agent who will be present at the departure points.
And can you give an example of the items that is a mandatory that you have to declare?
Yes, all restricted items that are being taken out of the country should be declared. For example, if you are carrying currency more than or equivalent or monetary instrument equivalent to $10,000, you are supposed to make that declaration to customs. Our officers who are present at the departure will be there to guide you on how to make that declaration in a monetary instrument declaration form. And then all the items that you intend to bring back into the country should be declared to customs. For example, if you are taking out, say, your professional toolboxes that you are going to use for your work outside the country, you are supposed to declare to customs. If you are taking out jewelry, you are attending a function, you are attending a wedding, you're supposed to declare to customs when you're leaving. If you're going out with your sporting equipments, you are supposed to make that declaration to customs. And when you make that declaration, customs will issue with your importation certificate that you are supposed to keep it, so that when you're coming back into the country, you will declare what you carried out with you, and at that point, we won't charge you taxes or we won't collect duty on that particular item.
For example, I can see your officers here with a few bags.
Yes.
Maybe they can demonstrate what they do on a daily basis.
Yes, when we are doing the clearance of passengers, we found one bag with the filming equipments which need to be declared at this point. So my officers will open it, we need to declare that, and then we issue with the importation certificate, so that when you're coming back, we'll just make a confirmation, okay, that for sure, these are the filming equipment you went out with. So at this point, we'll request to open the bag, but before that, we need to sanitize the bag. And we require a passport to make that particular declaration. We have found out that there are lenses. There's a professional camera, which we just need to check for the marks and numbers to make sure that when it is brought back, it is the same camera. So at this point, the passenger is required to give us the travel documents, and we shall process the importation certificate. So once we are done with the importation certificate, at the point of importation or coming back into the country, we'll be able just to compare the marks and numbers with what we have in the certificate, and we will be able to allow that passenger to come into the country with the equipment they took out.
Now, with that explanation, what would you advise a regular passenger on custom requirements to have a smooth flow in the airport? What would be your advice for the traveling public?
Yes, my advice to the public is always know your obligations and your entitlements. And I would really advise our travelers to log on to the KRA website, that is www.kra.go.ke, and under the Customs and Border Control, the frequently asked questions, FAQs, you're able to get all the obligations and the entitlements. A passenger should be aware of what they have in their possession and what is supposed to be declared. And I really want to advise the public to make declaration, especially for bulk currency. We've seen in the past the movement of currency where most of our traders don't make that declaration. So I would really advise that we make declaration, especially for the restricted items. That includes currencies, anything more than $10,000 or equivalents.
Now, after we registered our passenger, she's free to go now.
Yes, upon registration and doing the importation certificate, our passenger is allowed to proceed.
Now, Mr. Kirel, when you are screening the bags and you find a passenger, a departing passenger, who has not declared the restricted items, what action do you take? What are the consequences?
Failure to declare restricted items to customs is an offense. These are customs offense that will be dealt as per the provision of the Act. So we would advise all passengers who are traveling, who are leaving the country, to make sure that they declare all restricted items to customs so that they avoid facing the penalties and the fines that are provided in the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Now, for our public, keep viewing and take much interest because the gift bags are still coming. And our next question is, what are the restricted items that you require to declare? And if you don't declare, what are the consequences? Keep following us on our handles and engage us continuously. Now that we are through with customs, Madam Chemo, can you tell us what next?
Okay, thank you. That's a pleasure, highlighting what happens in our facilitation journey. Now we can move on to the airline counters where the passenger will present their documents to travel. You can do the check-in either self-check with these equipments, or you can go to the counters. In case you are a passenger who is not familiar with self-check-in, there's always an airline official around to assist.
So I can come here and get my boarding pass and board the aircraft?
Yes, please. You can come in, scan your passport,
Yes.
then get your boarding pass, and then you go and drop off your bag. Yes.
Now please take us to the counter check-in.
Okay. So after the security check, the passenger now comes to the check-in counter where he or she will present all the travel documents, passport, ticket, then they are able to check him or her in. The passenger will also drop the check-in bags, and of course they will weigh the hand luggage to see if it is within the requirement weight, and then the passenger is given back their bag.
Now, who manages the counters?
The counters are managed by the various airlines. Of course, we open counters based on the airline that is the passenger is traveling. Yeah, like now when you see this one, it's Kenya Airways.
Now we have Kenya Airways check-in economy class.
So before we broke up, we had a comment that we were expecting 2 comments, so you have a mic. Good. Just go ahead and then.
Okay, it was just a reminder to let you know that we are not yet done with the ATO regulations. So let us not move to the next one before we address fully what was presented for the ATO, please.
Okay. We'll take that. Excuse?
Thank you. I think my question was back to the Kcaa before we can move ahead to the next one. And this was specific to Regulation 4 for the baseline phase. And my query, I don't know if he's here, is...
Yeah, Winston, you can hear? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so my query is the baseline phase was amended as per ICAO to cover only 2019. However, I'm seeing in your final draft, you're covering both 2019 and 2020 emissions. So I just want to verify that it's only going to cover the 2019 emissions. Thank you.
So, Winston, I don't know whether you can respond to that. Can we get the mic to the end of the room?
Thank you. Thank you for that comment on the baseline. That's Regulation 4. The baseline period was amended due to COVID, but while the 2019-2020 year still remains, is because we adopted from the annex as it was. Officially, what the annex 1644 says is that the baseline period was to be 2019 at 2020. So, but due to COVID, everybody knows that due to COVID-19, the 2020 year, the aviation industry almost went to its knees. So there was no emissions, so we could not be able to calculate the baseline. Or if you use that 2020, there will be a lot of distortions. So we took the 2019. So that 2019 is the baseline. But we can amend this one to reflect the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Winston. I think that is clear. So I'll allow 5 minutes so that we can be able to receive comments on specific issues within the ATO regulations as requested by 99s. If you are ready, can we allow 5 minutes to receive specific questions on the ATO regulations so that we can be able to dispense with that?
Yeah, that is okay. We request that the matrix gets projected so that we go through it quickly.
She's projecting the matrix for ATO regulations. The next regulation is Air Operator Certification Administration. So if that's a regulation of concern to you, you can begin to have a look at the specific areas you want us to address. And then when we go to it, it will become easier.
Okay, I think we can scroll down. We have no problem with the change of titles. Just slowly a bit. Yeah, maybe here. Yeah, continue. Yeah, it's okay. Let's continue. There's a matrix which we propose to you. I don't know whether you have it.
Yes, I do. Those are the comments we have put in this matrix.
Because the areas of concern to us were in regards to one like the record keeping. I don't know which regulation that was.
That one, yes, I dealt with that one, and we understood that it has always been 10 years, and we needed, you had requested for it to be reduced to the national standards. So we mentioned that we are going to have a sit down with our legal department to be able to give us the timelines to change from the 10 years to whatever is there within the national
our concern is this, in regards to the records, you realize in 2013 it was 5 years. Then 2018 moved to 10 years. And when you look at the ICAO documents, it states only up to 2 years. Even further, the AOC regulations, it only asks for 2 years. So asking ATOs to keep records for 10 years is way too much when counterparts in the industry are being asked for only 2 years. So I guess 2 years should be the legal requirement. If it is allowed of AOCs, then the same should be applied of us and not to have 10 years. So I think we'll rather fix it at this moment in time.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll give you a minute. Perhaps when it comes to document repository, as far as the regulations are concerned and also the other laws, perhaps I would invite the legal department to give some outline on the duration which is required for the purpose of keeping the documents, so that at the end of the day we don't say 3 years. That was recommended by ICAO, but at the same time we have other national laws that are able to, that also give on what you call the protection of documents. Perhaps the legal department within the authority. Do you have anybody from legal?
That's on personnel records. I think the Kenyan law, the requirement is way even beyond the 10 years. Supposed to maintain for, should be 15. Yeah, that is the legal requirement on maintenance of personnel records. Thank you.
CS, if you don't mind, kindly come again so that it's very clear. So that we don't say this, then
yes,
there's other regulations that are required by the law of the land that you are going to break when we are talking about the period that is required. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, maybe you didn't hear me clearly. But what I'm saying, when it comes to maintenance of personnel records, there is a law that requires you maintain, and I think the period is 15 years. But I'm checking the text, which I should be able to read to you word for word. Thank you.
I wish to refer you to AOC Regulation 18.2, if you can project, please, in regards to record keeping.
Okay, allow me to say something. We have various laws and which have a requirement for record keeping for various sectors and various organizations and institutions in this country. Now, the Corporation Secretary has said 15 years for records, but I think we should also look, there are other laws that are there. Income tax purpose records is 7 years. There's another law for 10 years. There's this other one for 15 years. There's another one for 3 years. So the question is this: what is the Civil Aviation Act or regulation going to say? So I think that is something that we should consider. We can consult more with our legal department and even with Attorney General and other legal entities to come up with what is it that binds the civil aviation regulations in terms of period for keeping record. Allow us to get back to you on that. We will investigate it and revert. But we've heard the request is for 2 years. So let us see whether it is possible to lawfully do that. So please give us some time and we can move on to another one. Thank you.
Thank you, DG.
There was also that regulation about employing an administrator. Kindly project it also.
Employing an administrator?
Yeah, regulation 43.
Oh, here it is.
Regulation 43.6. So just scroll up, please. Yes, this is a new regulation in place where it states that ATOs to employ an administrative staff. I think we stated that this is too prescriptive. The document states that we have a system in place. So the system could be an IT system, it could be anything. But the minute you start putting an administrative staff, the danger that will be with this regulation is that you will come up with a circular AIC qualifying this person. And God forbid, you might ask for 3 years experience, among other things. So I think let us adapt what is in the document, which states that ATOs to develop a system as to whether we employ or otherwise. I think the house should be left to us. So we request that adapt what it states as per the document and not introduce personalities into the regulation.
Okay, that's noted. The idea here was just saying the administrative staff, we shall leave it to say that a system shall be employed to maintain. So that's fine.
Next, other than the CFI, I think there are a number of other heads. Head of quality, head of safety, and equally, we request that the 3-year experience be done away altogether. I don't know why 3 years, but we request that it gets done away altogether. By the virtue of the nature that instructors are in schools on transit basis, and therefore they are not likely to stay for 3 years, and wouldn't want to have ghost staff.
Okay, point noted. The 3 years experience where we had put in the management personnel, previous regulation was talking of extensive experience, so we were quantifying the word extensive to not be so vague. We have heard that you would prefer from 3 years to 1 year experience for all the management personnel, so that's in the entire schedule. That's noted.
And then the monster in the house is the maintenance manager. I think we can take us there. Yes, we know this is a new introduction. It is a standard. ACAO requires of us to have a maintenance manager, and whose duty is, I think, to dispatch or something to that. It is not supposed to maintain no repair aircrafts. But the qualifications of that maintenance manager are way too high for what an ATO can afford. And because he'll not be involved in the maintenance of an aircraft, we feel the proposal which we gave, stating that even a diploma holder in aeronautical engineering is adequate enough, because in the past we used to call him liaison. I think for us it's just a change of name, and therefore we should not complicate matters to ask for 5 years experience, to ask for engineer's license, to ask for a rating of the most complex aircraft you operate, among other things. Yet he or she will not be involved in the maintenance of the aircraft. So we ask of you to relook at these qualifications and consider the suggestion we gave you. A diploma in aeronautical engineering should be, in our view, adequate enough. Or we even suggested a pilot can do that, because basically it is liaison, just to liaise between the ATO and the AMO, because AMOs normally subcontract ATO subcontract maintenance services.
Okay, thank you, Kano. And as you can see, our remarks is that we postpone this discussion for this maintenance manager qualifications and so forth, so that when we are discussing airworthiness regulations, we are now able to tackle this issue once and for all. And from the input of the industry, there are those of us who are saying we maintain the status quo the way it is. Others are saying those, especially for approved an organization with one aircraft, it is too much prescription as far as qualifications are concerned, and also the issue of helicopter operations and so forth. Therefore, for this one, we are going to hold it at bay, and we ensure when you are discussing airworthiness regulations, it is tackled once and for all. I hope you are going to bear with us for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager. I think where the problem is coming from, that we have given you our input before, and we feel that our input has not been considered. And when you put comments there and put regulations, it needs to be referenced properly. We don't want to have references here on the floor telling us about an annex or a doc. It should have been there. Then we can go to that place and concur with you or find, how to deal with it. Remember, some things are standard. We cannot go against them. And others are not. We are aware about that. And as we sit here, Colonel is not speaking for himself. This is what we discussed during last time. He was mandated to present this by all the ATOs. So I don't think there is anybody, unless you have a dispute among yourself in Kcaa, to say you don't agree or you agree. Internally, we have no problem with what we are presenting here. And as I say, I'm speaking as a member of 99th Flying School and as the vice chair of the AATO Kenya. We also don't want to be given promises here. And when we leave here, we find something else. The Director General is seated here. He's been to our desk. He said we present these things to him. We're going to do that in good faith. But when Sheila comes to audit me, there will be no good faith. It will be the regulations. Therefore, we need to remove our feelings from the regulations. Facts don't care about our feelings. So what I'm saying, we're going to stop here. We will agree that time is of essence. It was mentioned that by Fred Opot, that we feel we have been ambushed. And I feel the ambush is on. Of course, I'm trained in anti-ambush. I am trained how to get out of it. But I'll not apply it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Major, thank you for that input. I remember the last time we were in this room, and this issue was discussed, including even going to the annex and see the prescription that is there within the minimum qualifications and requirements. And perhaps when we say that we discussed it in length during airworthiness regulations, we are not beating about the bush. We mean what you have said, because we want to address your concern. And that's why you have seen from there, it says to be discussed when we are presenting airworthiness regulations. And if that is not enough for the industry, and yet we are trying to preempt what we are going to discuss, it is not fair to the authority and also to us. And by the way, I can categorically say here, the problem is not with the authority. The authority has agreed with some of the inputs so long as they are not infringing the standards. The problem is with the stakeholders. I've mentioned again, there are those who are saying that let us make the status quo the way it is. You have come up with the proposals that have been taken on board. And therefore, the issue of maintenance managers could be addressed once and for all with a clear outline and a clear guidance on what you're supposed to do, so that at the end of the day, because we are here to serve you, we are here to serve the industry. And therefore, laws that are not able to be applicable, that are going to be a bottleneck to the industry, should be discussed and also see the way forward. And because of time factor, we are going to stop there as far as approved training organization is concerned, so that we go to the next chapter. And if there are any other pending questions that need to be discussed, we are going to be available to address them, not on this forum, but we are going to have a place where we are able to sit, look at those other inputs that are going to be given to us, and those suggestions, so that we may take them on board. We are going to be ready for you, and we are ready to listen. We are ready to be able to accept all inputs that are going to come from the industry. Thank you very much. DJ. DG, you have said the issue that we need to discuss, we have to close this chapter for now. And we have said we are going to be available in one of the rooms so that you are able to present to us whatever is remaining. Because at the end of the day, if we continue that, we are not going to be able to finish. And remember the number of regulations that we have. Kindly, with the respect and the humility, I ask you to bear with us for the time being. Thank you.
Was it an ATO-based matter?
It's something touching on the way we are conducting this whole process. There's certain things that have been mentioned which I think are not fair. You've mentioned that the problem is with the industry, but I would like to disagree. Because you introduced everyone here, flight operations officers, airworthiness inspectors. Right now, if we postpone certain discussions, we will end up bottlenecking the other sessions. So what I was requesting, Bwana DG, can you place an airworthiness inspector there so that as we go on, he can touch on those items that are touching on airworthiness?
No, okay, first of all, it was very unfortunate, the remark that he said that it is your fault that we have a problem. That is not true, and I think you should apologize. Can you apologize?
I apologize for that, but I meant this way. The comments from the industry, some of the comments have said we retain the status quo. Others have said we look at this issue critically, then we separate big organizations, small organizations. That's what I meant. I did not want to belittle anybody or any comment from anybody, and therefore, I really apologize. I'm sorry.
Okay, I thank you for that. He was misquoted. It was out of context what he meant. So, we hear what you say, and we do want this program to go well, the way it should. Now that a matter has come up that involves Airworthiness department, that is coming immediately after lunch. And Bwana MCMC, I'm going to request that airworthiness is discussed first, immediately after lunch. In the program is, I think, number 3 or something. But immediately after lunch, we discuss airworthiness first. So prepare yourselves, bullet by bullet, regulation this. This is what is being written. This is what we have requested for. And therefore, could we do something about it? We will need to respond to you and say that we are using regulation this from ICAO. We have a best practice or a practice from FAA, the CAA, or the EASA, the European EASA, so that we can justify ourselves in wanting to maintain something that we want to maintain. However, I want to say that there are those regulations that will or should only apply to aircraft that are 5,700 kilos and above, and in those categories of general aviation, light aviation, middle, medium size, and large size organizations like KQ. We are getting away from lumping everything in one regulation from general aviation to KQ type operations. That we're going out of. You've already seen we've made an attempt. We've come up with general aviation. We've come up with commercial operations that are light, medium, and heavy. So let's remain and stick to that kind of context. So where there are things that are pressing you, you come and you bring it immediately after lunch when we start the airworthiness section, so that we can do it point by point and finalize and move on. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, so the next regulation is AOC and admin regulations, which will be presented by the Manager Flight Operations, Captain Mary Kai.
Thank you, NCMC, for that. My name is Captain Mary Kai, Manager Flight Operations, and I'm here to discuss on AOC and admin. But before I do that, I wanted to thank Captain Gad Kamau and Captain Ian Mimano, who engaged us at length and helped us with some of the regulations. So on behalf of Flight Operations Department and the entire CAA, I just want to say asante sana. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll go through the feedback we have received. And the first one is from Bluebird. As it's projected, they've said AOC regulations, legal notice 92. The part that they said, I'll just go to the recommendations where they talked about 20,000 kilos, it should be should. That was a mistake on our part. It was an error, but if we look at the draft, this is what is going to be done. We haven't put it, we just put the 27,000. So for the person from Bluebird, I don't know who it is who's here. I hope we'll put that to rest. The next one touches on the second one they said is the same one for the qualification of head of maintenance. They were requesting for maintains what is in the current regulations, which is have held or hold aircraft maintenance engineer's license with appropriate airframe, power plant, and avionics ratings. And the other one that we got was from Major Nyanjui, and his was saying that, as we can read, the issue of head of maintenance in our small aircraft, both fixed wing and helicopters, with only 1 or 2 small aircraft and have a contract AMO, which is Kcaa approved, the head of maintenance will not have any job to do in a small AOC setup. So we continue to say that as Kcaa, you had promised to look at it, but since 100% the same, AOC post holders, management personnel regulation 13, sub-regulation 2. The head of maintenance with the qualification you have listed can only be workable in an AOC with a fleet of aircrafts, not 1, 2, or 3 aircrafts. Then he said that we do not kill the small operators. As the DG has mentioned, it's something that we are looking into to separate the two. So what I'll go ahead before we continue, I'll project. This is Annex 6, which is the same Part 1, which is the same as Part 3. And I wanted us to go through it because that's what our Airworthiness department requested, that we do that. And I think even as we go through it, it says operators shall ensure that in accordance with procedures acceptable to the state of registry, which in our case that's Kcaa, each aeroplane they operate is maintained in an airworthy condition. The operational and emergency equipment necessary for an intended flight is serviceable. Certificate of airworthiness of each aeroplane they operate remains valid. So I'll go to the 8.1.2. As of 5th November 2020, the operator shall not operate an aeroplane unless maintenance on the aeroplane, including any associated engine, propeller, and part is carried out by an organization complying with Annex 8, Part 2, Chapter 6, that is either approved by the state of registry of the aeroplane or is approved by another contracting state and is acceptable by the state of registry, by a person or organization in accordance with procedures that are authorized by the state of registry, and there is a maintenance release in relation to the maintenance carried out. And then the last part, 8.1.4, the operator shall employ a person or group of persons to ensure that all maintenance is carried out in accordance with the maintenance control manual. So I'll give the opportunity to Major Nyanjui to tell us from this perspective what it is that he wants us to do, and then my manager, Airworthiness, can come up and say something.
Yeah, I think now it's okay. Menyenju is from Moai Limited, and I have read in detail Annex 6, which is where I think Airworthiness got up with the issue of the head of maintenance. There's no requirement to have somebody who have got a license in engineering as head of maintenance. It's supposed to be somebody who can liaise with the MO alone. There is no requirement, if you read that annex, chapter 6, to do with the helicopters. From the first line to the last line, there is nowhere they mention an engineer anywhere. They talk about somebody who can liaise. I have got only one helicopter or two. If you want me to employ an engineer who have got a diploma, a degree, 3 years experience, hold an aircraft maintenance engineering license for specific group or type, that is too much for one helicopter. That is too much for a Cessna 182. It can only work for Air Kenya with 15, 30 aircraft, KQ, but if you go there for small aircraft, and this to Airworthiness, you are closing us. You are telling us to go home. We don't want us anymore. Because if you tell me, okay, just an example, for the last 3 years, how many engineers have been given license by Airworthiness? I would like that one to come from DG Kibe, please. DG Kibe. Yes. We want to know in the last 3 years, because we don't have engineers in this country. DG Kibe, in the last 3 years, we're just asking how many engineers have been licensed in this country. Airworthiness to tell us in the last 3 years. We have got 8 AOCs. So every AOC have to have an engineer from where?
Yeah, thank you. Manager personnel licensing can answer that. He's one with that record. I know we're many, but I know that we are not enough to be able to handle the maintenance engineer requirement that we are saying should be there, even for light aircraft operators and helicopters. So manager of personnel licensing, maybe you can answer that question.
So let's not go to there because might be there's no answer on that one as per this stage.
Yeah, if you don't have the data, you can find out and let us know later.
Thank you, DG. Up to yesterday, we have 1,700 licensed aircraft maintenance engineers. 1,700. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the total number of licensed engineers that we've ever licensed. So the important question is this: how many are actually active? That's another story.
Okay, I won't go to that, but what we are requesting as small operators, don't group us together with the big boys. Take our weight of aircraft is about 5,700 kilograms and below. Please, give us a way where a pilot can liaise in maintenance. As long as I have an AMO who you as Kcaa have audited them and agreed they have got the engineers required to maintain my helicopter. If not that, then you say the AMO is not qualified. Then I go to another AMO. But don't force me to have an engineer, because even the engineers I know for helicopters, and my figures are right on this one. The engineers who we have now in the country who can sign for helicopters, there are 9 in the country. And my figures are right. I don't know about the fixed wing. I'm talking about the helicopter. There are only 9. And we have got currently 78 helicopters in the country. No company have got more than 3 helicopters except 2 companies. So it is 1 helicopter, 2 helicopter, 1 helicopter. Where do we get these engineers? It is not possible. So for the time being, we are requesting it is be looked again for the small companies, including fixed wing, including the schools where Amin was talking. They might not manage with 16972 to employ an engineer. It's not workable. And Annex 6 is very clear. It does not talk about an engineer. Yesterday I met a lawyer, he went through it. I would like to meet my lawyer and the lawyer of Kcaa, they meet together, I take them. The annex does not say anything. I've got everything from 611 to 614 here with me. Does not require a maintenance liaison guy to be a qualified engineer. And I'm willing to be the lawyer for free. They meet, they sit down. Then we agree the way forward, because this is our aviation industry. We are not crossing it. So please, Mere, tunakuomba, ongea na watu wa Airworthiness. Waambie waache kusukuma sana. They are pushing us to a level we cannot get it.
Okay, thank you very much, Major. That we'll bring it up again in the afternoon session with airworthiness, because it looks like there's many issues with the airworthiness regulations and the input that they're giving that should be attached to operations of aircraft, approved training organizations. So we will iron it out this afternoon. So your points have been taken, your requests have been noted, we shall deal with it today. Thank you.
Is it in regards with the maintenance? It will be handled in the afternoon if you don't mind. Okay, thank you. Unless someone has any other thing to say, that's the only feedback we got from the industry about AOC and admin.
read means a licensed and suitably qualified person designated by the operator to engage in the control and supervision of flight operations in accordance with civil aviation personnel licensing regulation, who supports, briefs, and/or assists the pilot in command in the safe conduct of the flight. The annex also breaks down anyone that intends to be a flight operations officer requires to make an application for a license in order to exercise its privileges. In the entire regulations, you'd note, it's mentioned persons assigned operational control functions. Without that interpretation, it is not clear who is assigned these operational control functions. Also in the interpretation, there is a missing interpretation of a technical qualification, which in the annex you can define, and also from a peer review with the FAA. It means a qualification achieved through training, gaining and maintaining skills and procedural knowledge. It's a qualification that is continuously assessed. For example, for pilots, engineers, flight operations officers, and cabin crew, in accordance with civil aviation personnel licensing regulations. So a technical qualification is a skill that requires licensure or continuous competency checks to maintain the qualification. Now, in the entire regulations, for certain functions, an operations officer needs to have a technical qualification that is under the oversight of the authority. That interpretation is missing in the regulations. If you go to, I'll just go through all the regulations that we highlighted that had issues, if that's fine.
I think for the sake of time, if you could just send them to my email.
Okay,
but what you have, because it's, then we can incorporate. If it's in the annex, we have no problem incorporating that.
Yeah, however, we request that we already submitted the comments to the authority. Most of them, the authority did in fact confirm receipt, but most of the comments that we highlighted have not been incorporated. And most of the comments we have are in regards to safety and quality of flight operations. So we are kindly requesting if the authority will resend all the comments, that's incorporating comments from about 300 flight dispatchers. We'd like to request the authority to take in consideration in incorporating these comments to better the industry in general. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if you allow me, Kanwaidaka here again. I am surprised that Captain Kai says that that's all about AOC. We have actually submitted quite a lot of those observations, and it's surprising that some of them seem not to have reached you. So really, I think what the freight dispatch people are saying, maybe there's something missing. We've got something from some of our members, like the farmland crop sprayers, the agricultural issues about duty times, which is actually not well captured in the AOC regulations. And they have actually given us a very good history, which we have forwarded to you, and borrowed from those countries that really do quite a lot of agriculture. The aviation does a lot of about agricultural productions, especially Australia. So, and I think there are some others from our members also that were forwarded in time and acknowledged, but it seems as if they were not put in the program, so that we can't discuss them now, and that is unfortunate. Thank you.
It's okay, you can still bring them up. That's the reason why I opened the floor, in case there was an oversight on our part. The one for farmland, we had discussed with them even last time and said we have to come up with the agriculture regulation, and that's something that we are working on for now.
Yeah, at least that is good information. That needs to be said so that we don't say that AOC matters are closed, because that is work in progress. But we still got others, and that is why we've got Captain here today to give what the association had pointed out, if he's allowed to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, or rather good afternoon, I should say. One of the comments that we had made last time in June, and I'll repeat this, these are the qualifications of the post holders. And I can see one additional item. So if you go into Regulation 14.1D, a proposal is for the accountable manager successfully completed management training course or have at least 3 years of managerial experience. This is to cater for new AOCs. That is a proposal that you have in file. Now the other one is, of course, the other point regarding this is that there should not be any need for Kcaa recognition of management courses, as there are numerous types of management courses available in the market. So are you going to approve each and every course? This will only add an extra layer of bureaucracy to an approval process for an accountable manager. And the same thing for the other post holders, Madam. If I can direct your attention to Regulation 14.2A and 14.2D, the qualifications, and I think I'll echo Major here, that the proposal is to say, amend it to say holds or have held. And this is in reference to an EASA regulation where the post holders carry out an oversight function of the AOC itself. Managerial and oversight role, and does not require him to be in current flying or current engineering practice. That is a proposal that we've made, and you need to consider that. Same thing with 14.3E. 14.3E regarding chief pilot. What we have submitted is experience in management position is sufficient in lieu of a course. And the same issue of approval of management courses by Kcaa. Now, there seems to be some confusion on Regulation 14.4D regarding head of maintenance. 14.4D, our comment is that this is an irrelevant qualification. An aeronautical engineering degree or diploma is completely different from an aircraft engineering qualification. An aeronautical engineer, I think, for people who've done a bit of research, involves designing of vehicles and a lot of mathematics, whereas an aircraft engineer, or I think somebody had mentioned aircraft technician, yes, that is probably more appropriate. So I think this whole concept of aeronautical engineering degree should be deleted. And I have similar comments in front of me on 14.5D and 14.6D regarding management training for head of quality and head of safety. Experience in management position is sufficient in lieu of a course. In other words, we're proposing that the previous regulation was adequately covered for these qualifications. Thank you.
Okay, that is noted. When we make the changes, we'll let you know. We'll just look at it again as a team.
Thank you.
I think I have a mic. Yeah, Njama here. Maybe I had a small point, but I'd just like to add on what the previous two speakers have mentioned. And clearly, I think we need to appreciate the fact that ICAO expects states to move from prescriptive regulations to performance-based regulations, which is focused on actually achieving performance based on safety. So when we talk about all these positions and everything, the focus should be based on performance-based regulations. Hopefully we are moving that direction. It will take time for Kenya to move that way, but we appreciate that. Anyway, I was picking the mic to to point out Regulation 25, which is to do with aircraft wet leasing. Is not very clear because it's not clear who the operator is that is mentioned there. It's not clear where the requirements are for whether the requirements are for the leaser or the leasee, the person leasing out or the person leasing in. And it would make a very big challenge if you talk to the lawyers in terms of if there's an issue, who those prescribed requirements are for. Thank you. I had proposed a small change there, but I think it wasn't captured.
I'd like to request maybe if you could give direction on when we can expect a response to the submissions you made initially to the regulations, to the draft regulations.
From AOC and admin, once you send us what we had, I think maybe it got lost somewhere, and together with Captain Jama and KAO team, we'll look at it on Wednesday.
Also, this is from the Kenya Airline Flight Dispatch Association. We'd like to be, our comments to be incorporated, and we'd like sufficient, or rather, we'd like you to tell us, like, when can we expect a proper response? Because in the email we sent, we just had someone accepting that they've received our comments, but most of them, even looking at the stakeholders' comments that we sent in, very many things have been left not done. The forum is not enough to address these items, so that is what we'd like to really be able to understand when we can expect, like, to get feedback on our comments, whether they're incorporated, if they're incorporated, and if not, why.
I make a personal invitation to come to my office on Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you.
Then we can go through that. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comment from AOC and admin?
Thank you, Captain. I think the next sets of regulation, we want to look at the certification, licensing, and registration of aerodromes regulations. Again, we look at the certification of air navigation service providers, and we will also try to look at approved maintenance organizations before we go for lunch. That would allow us to considerably reduce the burden of the regulations to review. So I'd like to invite the Air Navigation Services and Aerodromes Oversight Direct Department to make a presentation on the certification, licensing, and registration of aerodromes regulations, as well as certification of air navigation service providers.
Lawrence, if I may, as the team is preparing themselves to, through you, go talk to the Director General. I think it's becoming a bit disappointing seeing how we are actually addressing the submissions in that a lot of what we were told in the previous one that will be included in this particular meeting is actually being skipped. We talked about cabin crew and the training requirements. And we were told that that is going to be looked at and we get a response this particular time. We can't see that coming through. Then immediately a question like that is asked. We were told that there is a group that will meet on Wednesday. We don't know whether those groups meeting on Wednesday we will be called again to come and discuss as stakeholders. So we feel a bit disappointed. I know this is good effort, but we feel that a lot has been missed out. And I don't know how this can be addressed and recalled, because these regulations need to be bought and accepted by both parties. If we are just told, yes, we received, and then we don't get an answer, yes, it was rejected, or it will be considered, and if when it gets considered, it will be called again, then I think, and I have heard complaints from some of Association of Air Operators members. It means like actually we are not getting too far. Thank you. And that is with due respect, DG.
I'll go ahead and answer that. Colonel Waithaka, we didn't say that we hadn't responded. If you go to the matrix, we actually have stakeholders review and the remarks. So my assumption was that people had read it. But if you want us to go through it, I'll be more than happy to do that.
We can't see anything in the matrix. Can we portray it here, the ones that you're talking about?
Excuse? May I speak? I just want to point an example on the issue of cabin crew. I'll go to Regulation 35. Look at Regulation 35, 2A. In the case of an aircraft with a total seating capacity of 20 to 50 passengers, one cabin crew member. When you go to Regulation 35, 5, notwithstanding the preceding provision of this regulation, the authority may give a direction to an operator requiring the operator to include among the crew thereof, whenever the aircraft is flying for the purpose of commercial air transport operation, at least one cabin crew, notwithstanding that the aircraft may be carrying fewer than 20 passengers. So you're already limiting us up there. Then why are you opening a gap where the authority wants to now impose less? You see, those are the things we brought out last time. Then the other issue is the number of cabin crew members used during a successful aircraft evacuation demo shall be minimum cabin crew complement for the aircraft type for that operation. Why are you imposing that again? If a Fokker 50 was built and the wise men thought it can be evacuated with one cabin crew, now you want to impose again. So we are bringing a lot of complications in the operation. What if I carry less people? So go to the requirement up again. We've brought issues of engineering, design, and things like that. we are introducing a lot of complications into this. You know, Wanoport mentioned if we had an objective, you know, authority, and we are saying this because sometimes we experience these things as operators. We would not mind, even if it is harshest regulation, because there's always someone who will listen. But now, again, I look at this regulation, the matrix has been cleverly worded, deleted, amended, okay, this, that. It's not giving details. So now I'm confused because I have to read everything, you know, and it cleverly started. Forgive me for saying this. You started by saying Bluebird, you gave a case study to certain people, but we discussed a lot of things. And this is commercial operation. This is where the real deal is.
I've just projected the matrix for cabin crew, and we had that discussion last time, and we said we've amended, and it has gone back to 1 to 50. See, stakeholders review.
Yes, then
So
the ones at the bottom, where we are saying, you know, the 6 and the 7s.
Which one is that?
35.6, 35.7, 35.8.
35.7 is here.
It's
right there.
And Mary, what I mean is not specifically this. There's many that we talked about, which I'm not seeing the comments. No, we'll have to, you know, it's like, okay. If everyone is okay with that, you know, it's a sword with two sides, yeah? It will cut us.
Could you kindly just clarify for our Director General to understand 35.7, what you're asking?
For 35.7, the last time for 35, I think 6, 7, and 8, we discussed and we put comments. Now I have to go back to the original comments, which I cannot find, but we discussed them on the Zoom meeting we had. I don't know if you remember. There's a lot of comments we put. So I was pointing out as an example, because right now I will start that, then I will have to look for another one. So I'm asking, what about the comments we did on Zoom? Because right now I don't want it to be an exchange between now me, you, again. So is it possible, maybe the comments that we put before during the Zoom, because I've not seen those ones captured. You know, we discussed a lot. It's not only these items that are listed here. I thought maybe those items that were discussed at that time were pulled up, because what we are banking on is what people send to you on email. If we knew we were going to just send on email, then we would not be there in the Zoom. But I don't know, Mary, what can you tell us in terms of are those comments captured here?
We captured the comments. That's the reason why I went back and said, if you look what we did, the proposed text is what we had said, and the stakeholders review is what you said. So the ones that we were able to amend, we did that, and the ones that we did not amend, we actually put comments.
Allow me to get back to you on regulation 35.7. I'm going to look for the other comments while other people engage, okay?
No problem.
Can I have a talk, please? Yeah, I see the meeting which was the meeting we are now, and when you check on the Kcaa website, Draft Civil Aviation Regulations 2022, and when you read, there is a paragraph there which is saying, the authority has further scheduled a stakeholder review meeting to be held on 14 and 15 February 2022 at Ole Serene Hotel, starting at 0800 hours, to present the draft regulations incorporating stakeholder comments. So I believe what we are supposed to be discussing at length is what are our issues at the two meetings we had, the Zoom meeting and the meeting we had last December. What have you done with them? What were the issues being raised at that time? Then we should be just moving ahead very fast in that sense. But now it seems like we are trying to suggest or to bring other amendments or suggestions or proposals to the already amended regulations. And I believe maybe, I don't know whether it's going to be another review meetings like this or this one is going to be the last one. So maybe clarify on that and just give us what is supposed to be done at this meeting. Thank you.
Bwana DG, I've gotten my reference. I've gone to the old regulation. Oh, okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Looking at the matters that you have looked here, there are questions about what came up during the last Zoom meeting and those metrics have been looked into, and they are already incorporated. The comments are already posted in the website. So for the two meetings, one the Zoom meeting, and the other one was a physical meeting with specific stakeholders who we met on November and December. The others we had met in June. Now, we have comments that after posting that came in, some of them as late as last Friday. And I believe that's what my friend is bringing up. I don't think we have not adequately addressed those that came last Friday as a result of already what we had posted in the website. So I would like to request that those comments that were brought last Friday, which my brother here is also insisting a lot, we shall look at them by Thursday, and every operator or every stakeholder who has said, for example, some are from AMLEF, there are some farmland, which also came on Friday, and also other organizations. There are about 3 or 4 that did bring their contribution. We shall handle them, and by Thursday, we shall reply to you specifically on those particular items so that we are able to move forward. We agree that we also got from KAO forwarded to us late in the week, and therefore we have not been able to adequately address. So we are going to make sure that whatever came in late last week, we shall do it by Thursday, and through KAO and also to the specific stakeholder who wrote these things. I think we can move forward. But be assured that the matrix that's already posted in the website is concerning whatever was handled during the virtual meetings, and was incorporated. Thank you. And if you have issues that you have not looked ahead and you have seen, please just bring them forward. And we believe on Wednesday we have nothing else to do but sit on those matrices, and we shall make sure that you forward to you. And you can also, if you are still not satisfied, we are ready to have a one-on-one discussion so that we give you the best regulation on this matter. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we'll go to the next one, but that AOC regulation is very sensitive, and therefore we shall make sure that we come out with the best regulation, not punitive, and but also keeping the safety in check. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
I'm coming back to the regulation 7 and 35.7 and 35.8, which when a DG requested I explain what I meant. Regulation 35.7 and 35.8, the comments are best industry practice. I remember clearly we asked which is this industry that is best, because the regulation says the number of cabin crew members used during a successful aircraft evacuation demo shall be the minimum cabin crew complement for that aircraft type for that operation. 8, where the operator wants to reduce the minimum cabin crew complement approved under subregulation 7, the operator shall apply to the authority for approval. So we've introduced, 2 processes where there was none, and we've said best industry practice. So we'd want to understand, we are the industry. So what is the practice? And the comment and the gap was non-compliance during demonstration. So if there's a non-compliance with another operator, now you want to impose sanction on all of us. What about us compliant operators? Should we not enjoy, the will of and the flexibility of not being overregulated? So there's many non-compliances. If you are going that way, then all non-compliances, we should introduce laws so that we can become more punitive rather than looking at the root causes for these non-compliances. So again, referencing to what Buonaport discussed, is that he mentioned something to do with good laws and bad laws. And I think Mr. Kivindo also mentioned something of the same, in the same line. So we want to introduce laws. The same laws we have, we can still not fully, perfect, we are introducing new laws. So the issue for the cabin crew is an issue that I think the regulator can deal with the individual operator who is presenting the non-compliances. But introducing laws, this is just one. So right now we want to go back, and absence of this process of operator participation, if you leave it, Bwana DG, if you leave us with a boardroom where we want to discuss, tutakuja tuambiwe, you know, we are making laws for you. The laws are supposed to be a collective process. So I don't know.
Allow me to answer that. Yeah. If you look at what we said, the non-compliance came in, the root cause was most people, when we go to do the demonstrations, it's expensive for you people to come and then we work on that. So we realized that some people, you say you will evacuate with one cabin crew, and then you're not able to do that. So if you look at it, it's not a blanket regulation. All we said, whoever it is, the number that you demonstrated successfully that you can evacuate with, that's the number that you will have as your company. So if company A was successful with one cabin crew and company B was successful with 2 cabin crew, that's what we'll do. And then later on we said, if you want to change, if let's say you successfully demonstrated with 2 and you say, hey, where we have reached, we can be able to do it with 1. Come back and we will go back and do that process again. That's all we are saying. We haven't blanketed it to all operators.
For example, let me give you a scenario. I have a 37-seater, a Dash 8-100. It has multiple configuration. I can put it at 19. I can put it at 21. So when I'm at 19, do I carry a cabin crew? If I'm carrying 10 passengers and cargo at the back, or when I'm at 37, do I need a cabin crew? So I'm giving you scenarios where we put regulations that tomorrow we have new aircrafts coming in, STCs coming in. So especially things that touch on design certification, it's best to leave them, come and audit and say, listen, you're not demonstrating this as you're allowed to do that. You are the regulator because it's the interest of safety. But introducing laws, that is my problem.
My friend, you're saying all these things, but you're not telling us, what is it that you want to see in 35.7? Read it for me.
I want you to remove 35.7 and 35.8.
And replace it with what?
And leave it the way it was. There
how
was
was
no
it?
35.7.
Read to me how it was before.
It was not there in the old regulation. It is best industry practice. That's what you've argued as bringing it into the law.
So you want us to remove that requirement entirely?
Because there is already a regulatory requirement within the framework of the CAA.
Saying what?
It is not a law.
Saying what?
I don't know because it is not there, but you've introduced it to us. We need to experience it, and that's why I've given you my experience as an operator operating an aircraft that has different configuration, practically. I've told you that I have a 37-seater aircraft that it has a cargo hold that moves front and it becomes 19 seats. The seats are removed.
It's a combo. It's a combo. Yes.
Yes. In that scenario.
So.
In that scenario.
Yes.
If I was to fly without a cabin crew, because I have 10 passengers, do I need to put a cabin crew there?
You're saying that you don't need to put a cabin crew.
I may not need to, because it adds on the cost. I'm just giving you a scenario.
You know something, eh? There's issues of cost and there's issues of safety. Our mandate is to deal with safety. What does it say for a 37-passenger aircraft that you should have as minimum crew? What does it say?
It says if you have a configuration of 37-seat.
No, a 37-seater. I'm not talking about your combo operation. I'm talking about your seat capacity of your aircraft. If it is a 37-seater, what is the minimum crew
for passenger operations. If it is one, then that's what it is. It's one, and if you demonstrate to us that you can do a successful emergency evacuation with one cabin crew, that we are saying is the minimum crew that will be required at any time. You may add another one if you want, but you may not minus one. That's what we are saying. Because that is what the manufacturer says, and that is what will make you the mandate of safety of that operation. Demands and requires it. And for that, we will not compromise. I'm very sorry. I'm not looking at the commercial aspect, I'm looking at the safety aspect.
Now going back to 35, allow me. Going back to 35, 1A, it doesn't talk about seater. It talks about seating capacity, not seater. It's not the same thing. A seater is generality of an aircraft.
So what we'll do, if you've given us those comments, we will look at them by Wednesday, and then we'll decide now what to do. We are not going to continue this discussion in this forum right now. I thank you for your contribution. So let's summarize and wind up.
Yeah, so to allow us move on, let's deal with the air operators, the aerodrome certification, licensing and registration regulations, and then we will be able to follow that closely with certification of air navigation service providers regulations. These are fairly short regulations we should be able to dispense with because of the number of comments we received.
Through the aerodromes, the certification and licensing regulations. Okay, we had a few comments, and most of them, okay, there was some which were on the regulation number 2. That one, I think he had said about the section 2 had bolded some of the words, especially the ones defining the arresting system toward life hazard. So for the final draft of the regulations, okay, these texts were unbolded. Then we had the word accident was defined in the Act, and then they had asked whether there was any need to repeat this definition under Section 2 of the regulations. Our comments were that there was no problem with putting the accident definition in the regulations, as somebody does not have to read the Act to read the regulations. They can maybe read them separately and still he'll get what the definition is. Then there was a comment on the definition of aerodrome under the regulations, which differed from the one that was in the Act. So for us to make the two in sync, we will amend the aerodrome definition in the Act, because the one in the regulations is what is in the Annex 14. Then the Regulation 5, there was a question on whether helipads within an airstrip needed to be given an independent certification or licensing.
So according to our regulations, we indicated that heliports located within the boundaries of another aerodrome shall be regarded as one entity and do not require separate certification or licensing. Okay, Regulation 7E was about the categorization of airstrips, and we just try to make clear the Category E definition. The other question we had was on Regulation 8.1. That was the Bird and Wildlife Hazard Management Manual needs to be consistently referred to in the regulations. And Regulation 8.1 only refers as Wildlife Hazard Management Manual, leaving out the bird element. And yet bird strikes are most likely wildlife hazard to aircraft. So for this one, okay, we agree that the definition of wildlife is inadequate and should be reviewed to indicate that it includes birds. So we tried to review the definition to mean all animals on airside and vicinity of aerodrome, including feral birds and domestic animals out of control of their owners. The next one was on Regulation 16.2. It was also on the Wildlife Hazard Management Manual that should be included as part of the requirements of the amendment of Regulation 16.2. So our comments, the request for the Aerodrome Manual in the amendment of certificate has already been taken care of the Wildlife Hazard Manual. Regulation 19, that was an arrangement of regulations under Part 2, number 19, which reads, charges at certificated aerodromes, correct to read, charges at certified aerodromes. So this one was accepted, and 19 has been changed to charges at certified aerodromes. 23.1, the Bird and Wildlife Hazard Management Manual should be included as part of the requirements for the application of an aerodrome license. The request for aerodrome manual again, here is already in the regulations, and that one we hope it caters for the wildlife and hazard manual that is requested. Then again, Regulation 26, there was the request to consider the heading non-conformance to the licensing requirements instead of the breach of conformance with the licensing requirements. For this one, the proposal was accepted and it was incorporated. Regulation 27, this one was just about a grammatical error, and it was accepted, and we have incorporated it in the regulations. Regulation 30, the Bird and Wildlife Hazard Management Manual should be included as part of the amendment of an aerodrome license. The request for an aerodrome manual in the amendment of a license has already taken care of the need for a wildlife hazard manual. Then we had a question on Regulation 33, 3, which was raised that it says that the regulator may prescribe the maximum charges which may be levied for the use of aerodrome. Are these charges not controlled by the parent ministry? So Kcaa had may additionally regulate the maximum charges of private aerodromes in liaison with the Ministry of Transport to ensure the harmonization of charges and to curb exploitation. The regulation has not precluded the certificate license holder from prescribing charges. It is only in certain circumstances that the authority may prescribe the maximum charges. So the final draft is notwithstanding sub-regulation 1, the authority may, where necessary, prescribe the maximum charges which may be levied for the use of aerodrome or performance of services at an aerodrome for a specified period. Regulation 42. There was a request to replace the article "an" before the word heliport with "a" so that it reads maintain a heliport. That proposal was accepted. So Regulation 42 was also on grammar also, and it was accepted. The proposal was accepted and incorporated. So the final draft reads as follows: the authority shall, following the issuance of a license, carry out surveillance and inspections to ensure continuing validity of the license and continuing capacity of the heliport. So 42.5 was also on a grammar or a topo error, which was reviewed. 46.5. The issue was that 46.5 allows an appeal to the Cabinet Secretary. And the question was, should in this appeal be lodged to the National Civil Aviation Administrative Review Tribunal in line with Section 69 of the Civil Aviation Act? So this was noted and was reviewed to be in line with the Act. (46) was also the suspension should be varied instead of the suspension shall be varied, which is also a typo error, and they were accepted and incorporated. (47) also was a typo error, and those ones were also accepted and incorporated. So these last ones here, they were not really about any regulation, they were just comments. And you had requested on, I think, the authority shall shall cancel the license upon the expiry of the period in sub-regulation 1. That was to do with the licensing. That is what? 47.1. So that a license holder, a holder of a license who wishes to surrender the license shall give the authority not less than 90 days in license before the date of which the license is to be surrendered. And then the authority shall cancel the license upon the expiry of the period of notice in sub-regulation 1. So if you have surrendered your license, then it is after a period, then it will be cancelled. Then even after that, where after the period expiry of the period in sub-regulation 1, a heliport is abandoned or not maintained in accordance with the conditions of the license, the holder of the license shall remove, obliterate, or modify the prescribed markings. So that's all to do with the surrendering of the certificate of the license. Regulation 49, it was also about a typo error which was accepted. 57, so they were saying we remove the year on regulations, and that one was done. Regulation 58, it was to, they had requested on the check, the numbering, which was also typos, and it was done. Regulation 72, they had requested about authority should not bear costs for acts or omission done negligently. Though that was noted, however, the acts in bad faith are not borne by the authority, and omissions done negligently is encompassed in acts of bad faith. So at the end, the final draft reads as follows: any expenses incurred or to be incurred by any person mentioned in subsection 1 in defending an action, claim, or demand in any suit brought against that person in respect of any act or omission done or purported to be done by that person under these regulations or on the direction of the authority shall be reimbursed or borne by the authority unless act or omission was done
So if you do move the accountability away from the airport authority, so who ends up being accountable to ensure that we do not have a repeat of the same in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Christian Strabel. I have a question. The regulations which were, the draft was published, mentioned regulation 6E, which you in your matrix have omitted. However, last week when we downloaded the regulation, there was a regulation 6E. Those who might not have read it, regulation 6E states that Class E airfields can only be used by domestic non-commercial operators or aircraft. That puts us in an awkward situation. Obviously about 450 airfields in Kenya will be in Class E, and none of them can be served by commercial operators. That's regulation 6E, and I cannot see that in your matrix, but it has been published on your website and we downloaded it. Could you enlighten us what happened to regulation 6E, and is it really your intention of blocking commercial operators into Class E airfields, which are probably most airfields in the Masai Mara, Laikipia, throughout the country? Is that your intention, or is that a mistake you might have done and not discovered? Would you mind to answer?
It's okay. We take the third one, then we can answer. Okay,
good. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Mark Ambitho. I'm from the civil society. I want to go across what you've talked about, aerodrome design and operations regulations. I'm seeing that you are most concerned with the bird and wildlife management manual.
Sorry. Just one thing. You want to address which regulations?
I want to go to the aerodrome design and operations regulations.
The ones we are discussing now is aerodrome certification, licensing, and registration. Design and operations will come later. So if you can hold on to that.
Yes, even just it will touch on that.
We really wanted to have consistency. If we move up and down, we will waste a lot of time discussing something that will be discussed later.
Okay.
So if we can discuss certification, licensing, and registration first, then design and operation is a totally different idea.
Okay, I'll discuss it when it comes to the design operations. Thank you.
So let me allow my colleague to respond to the questions that have been asked so far.
Thank you so much for the question. I will pick, you never introduced yourself, but let me give a response. My name is David Ondiki from Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. I want to respond in respect to the category E aerodromes and say that it was not an intentional omission. In the matrix, maybe Tracia, you can show sub-regulation 7. It's depicted as 7, but within the regulations that are in the website is 6E, so basically it's a numbering issue. Going to your core question in terms of whether the intention of the authority is to lock operators from category E, that is not the spirit of the authority. I'll make reference to the provisions of ICAO Annex 14 that requires the certification of aerodromes and is very particular for international operations. However, for purposes of managing the regulatory framework within a state, whereby we need to have requirements on aerodromes that need to be licensed and aerodromes that need to be registered, Kcaa has come with the specific categories, and I think it was a discussion with the industry. So basically, we are not locking you out, but there's a specific recommendation that is on the board. Basically, maybe Tracia, you can plug it in, whereby ICAO requires the authority to take regulatory oversight for all aerodromes undertaking public operations, which I think comes into that particular provision where the spirit of this particular requirement is coming from. Let me read that particular text. It says states should certify aerodromes open to public use in accordance is a recommendation. So in this element is not a certification requirement, but a licensing requirement. By virtue of us requiring that there are some provisions that require, there are those aerodromes that we have required that we register, and there are minimal provisions that have been provided for that. If you are undertaking specifically operations that require carrying passengers, and this is the spirit 142 in terms of public use, that is basically the spirit of this particular requirement that is contained in 6E, Regulation 6, subsection E, if I may say so. I don't know whether I've responded adequately to your question. Yes, God, I can see.
Okay, I am Munya from Kcaa. Kindly, if you can display matrix 33.
Let's deal with the 6E with politeness, Mr. Munya, kindly. Let's give the mic to the colleague who asked a question about subregulation 6E.
Okay, thank you so much for your explanation. In that case, I would assume that the draft you sent out is not what we are discussing here. So the draft you said you did a change in numbers and other things, but the draft published in on the website has a 6E. What you're saying is that it has been changed, and that's very good. But doesn't that question the legitimacy of this forum if you change the draft without informing us? And even if it's just a numbering or whatever, an amendment, we respond to the draft you sent out, and you can't just change it. We need time to study whatever changes you have made. This is number one. Okay. And number two, I failed to understand or failed to comprehend what ICAO has to do with internal flights. ICAO, this is an internal domestic flights. I mean, ICAO regulations are fantastic, or recommendations are great, but would it not be easy for the KCO, for the regulator, to file a difference? I said this is internal flights. We are not flying from category EE airfields ever into cross-border operation. Reference to ICAO is great, but can we not file a deviation from that this is not applicable? So we don't have this situation that we end up being locked out. As you say, it's not the intention of the regulator to lock us out, but I haven't seen the new regulation. Are you in a position to show us the new regulation 7E, which says that we can actually fly commercial of Class E airfields?
Thank you for your comment. What I said is basically a typo. The regulation still in the website is 6E, only that there was an error in the matrix. That's basically what I said. So there has not been a change. The provision has not been revised in terms of undertaking of non-commercial operations from category E aerodrome. That is basically where we are. And we said, let's have an engagement like what we are, so that we can be able to explain the reasons why Kcaa retained this particular provision. What we are saying, these particular operations that are taking place in the Mara and the parts of northern Kenya can comfortably still be undertaken within category C aerodrome, whereby you can get a license. And it's not strenuous. The authority has undertaken capacity building for purposes of oversight of these particular aerodromes, and we can be able to facilitate that within a very short notice. So the issue here is not restricting or constricting the industry or shutting down the operation, but the issue here is enhancing safety within the operations that are taking place into these particular aerodromes. And that's why this categorization is existing, and hence the explanation that we are providing. Maybe I can give my colleague Teresia to say something on the same.
Okay, maybe I'll just add on to the spirit was actually just to ensure that all public the public flights, that is the ones that are commercial, depending on the carriage of passengers, carriage of cargo, training flights. It should be at least operate from aerodromes that are regulated. Though even the registered are regulated because they have to still maintain the minimum standards, especially of infrastructure. But for the operations, that is now where I put it in the licensing section.
Thank you, Captain Gad. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, David. Quickly, I was involved in a committee that was appointed by the DG back in 2014 to come up with the issues of Category E. And what we recommended was to operate commercial aircraft into Category E up to 30 passenger seats. Now, I see this privilege has been removed. My concern is what led to Kcaa wanting to regulate that category of airstrips, where now instead of, and you know, those airstrips were registered. Registered meaning that the owner of the aerodrome, all he had to do was to submit information to Kcaa, and that information, I have all that information here with me. It was a self-reporting form where the operator of that aerodrome would notify Kcaa of the intention of using that aircraft, using that aerodrome, and the size of aircraft that you'll be using. Now, you might be talking about Kcaa needs to be involved, but don't forget, all operators, operations, commercial operations in this country have safety and quality departments within their operations. And those safety and quality departments are the eye of Kcaa within the operator. And those safety and quality departments are the ones who will be approving those airstrips on behalf of Kcaa for the operators to use. Now, I remember the DG, when he started off, he talked about safety and having an atmosphere that is conducive to business. If you restrict those airstrips, you will be interfering with business. And when we looked at airstrips looked at these same regulations in Canada, I believe UK and Australia. And UK alone has, I think it's 300 landing strips that are just registered. They are not regulated. Now, when you look at the airstrips that we are really concerned about, they are mostly in northern Kenya. If you have an operator of an airstrip in northern Kenya who is subjected to an extra cost of having his airstrip certified or regulated for 3-4 flights a year, that will cost him. And eventually he'll give up using that airstrip. The other issue you need to consider, David, is what do we use these airstrips for? We use them for CASEVACs and MEDEVACs, which some airstrips could be once, twice a year. We use them as alternate and diversion airstrips for commercial operations. And we also use them for business activity, especially low frequency. I believe we should go back to what the regulation initially stated, because I see absolutely no reason why Kcaa should involve itself in that category of airstrips. Thank you.
I have taken your observations and comment, Captain Gad. Maybe we combine with the Colonel here so that we can respond them jointly.
Thank you. It's very much on the same point about non-commercial use of the Category E, so-called aircraft. And just to re-emphasize what the other two contributors have pointed out, I must say that I am the one who chaired the task force that was established by the DG in 2014, and it incorporated Kcaa and Kcaa. And the reasonings are all there. We have got the documents and they are filed with Kcaa. And it was felt then that since these are just domestic operations and there is no cross-border operations, we should be brave enough as Kenya, in the interest of what the vision of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority is, which is to provide safe and economically viable air operations. So if you now say that you are going to remove category E from commercial operations, you are shutting down over 200 aircraft that are very useful and has brought foreign exchange to this country by taking tourists across. Let us for once be bright and brave and file a difference for this particular case if it must be done. But I believe that maintaining category E as a commercially viable, with what we have actually put in the document of the task force, is very, very clear. It's actually something that is very useful to this country. And like God said, we borrowed this regulation together with Kcaa from Australian so-called bush aircraft and also the American, the US FAA bush aircraft regulations. So surely, why should we deny ourselves a facility that is there, that is useful? And if you look at even the statistics, we would like to know how many, unsafe operations have happened in those areas. So please, we request Kcaa to take courage. And if it requires even filing a difference, this is the beginning. I don't think we have ever filed one. But this, for the sake of the economy of this country, needs to be done that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the feedback that has been provided by Captain Gad Kamau, the Colonel, the head of KAO. We take note of the submissions, and I think we'll be able to reconsider basically and give feedback by tomorrow. We will consult within this particular forum so that we can be able to have an acceptable clause. However, the intent of the authority at this point in time is to enhance the safety of operations into these particular airfields. And by requiring that they undertake a licensing process, it's not a costly affair, basically to ensure that we guarantee the type of operations that are taking place are going to an airfield that has been inspected by the authority and licensed by the authority for purposes of public use. The intent of the authority, I repeat myself, is basically not to close operations and stifle the tourism industry, but actually to facilitate the type of operation as guided by the International Civil Aviation Organization and as domesticated in the provision that we are having. If it's a matter of cost in terms of this, maybe that could come out where maybe the authority can be requested to waive fees in this particular area so that we can make it easier for the aerodrome, because I have not heard the aerodrome operators raise issue in terms of their inability to be able to meet this particular provision. But it's a concern from the operators which is being aired and which we have heard as an authority, and we'll be able to discuss internally and provide our feedback before the end of the day tomorrow on the acceptable means. But the spirit, I think you get what the thinking and the guidance that we took into consideration, so that the committee that was there in 2014 factored these issues, and aviation is dynamic and is changing, parameters change. 2014 is a long time that we may need to be able to appreciate where the authority is coming from. May I request that we terminate that, and basically we provide our feedback basically on what would be the acceptable text under this. Is it acceptable to you?
Chair, if I may talk on behalf of the others, I think that is quite acceptable. But when you are considering it, because I know we are going to close very late today, and you say you are going to look at it later and then report tomorrow, you might not have that time. But let us also focus on what was put in as the sixth schedule of that, for that regulation only, that is very clear on safety of the bush aerodromes operations.
Thank you.
might
I
not
have a
enough
copy
time.
of that document. We can be able to go through together. So can we move on for the sake of breaking to lunch so that we can close this particular regulation?
Okay, my question, if you may, is on regulation
Just a minute.
33.
I needed to answer the lady from who had asked a question on the NEMA. Okay, the spirit why we decided to say it is, okay, that requirement is, NEMA are the ones who are more, they're the government agency for environmental matters. So, okay, what we request from Kcaa is an environmental report if they are doing any changes. But the final person who has anything to do with the environment is the National Environment Management Authority.
Thank you. Allow me to maybe just query that a little bit more, because part of your requirement for certification of an aerodrome is to submit an environmental impact assessment to yourselves. Yes. So does that not encompass what you're saying?
Okay, we request that, but it has first to come also from NEMA.
Correct.
They bring it from NEMA, yes.
Okay, so NEMA is a governing body for the assessment. That is in terms of certification that it is valid and correct. However, it should still be submitted to you, or now we are no longer requiring submission of the same to you.
There is that requirement that they bring whatever they are, the NEMA assessment report to us, but after NEMA has approved it.
Okay, because your entry deleted the entire.
Second?
Whatever you displayed moved the complete responsibility away from yourselves to NEMA.
No, what we moved from us to NEMA was telling us that we need to have, let me just read what. Okay, what Nature Kenya had requested was that it was important to undertake an environmental impact assessment informed by comprehensive ornithological studies to identify potential impacts and outline mitigation measures when aerodromes and heliports are concerned. So when it comes to ornithological processes, I don't think Kcaa will have adequate competency, so we leave it with the NEMA also.
Yeah, I think that the key issue here is we need not to start legislating or regulating environmental impact assessment when NEMA exists. So as a government agency, when you get an environmental impact assessment done and approved by NEMA, you simply submit it to the authority and we proceed with the technical aviation aspects. What you wanted was to see the need for an environmental impact assessment. And we are saying we will not make it our job in this regulation. We will make you meet NEMA requirements on your application, submit with a NEMA document, then we can proceed, okay? I think there's one question here we cannot ignore, then we can go for lunch. Yes, sir.
Nashukuru. Ladies and gentlemen, some wise man long time ago said, if you see something going wrong and you say nothing, you're part of the problem. So this is what I'm about to say. Haka kamzee dio kanaitagwa ririani. In this country, we are proud to have a lot of media transmissions. Safaricom, Airtel, Post and Tel. We're proud of what they are doing. But then, the problem of masts. All of us are aviators. You take to Diani, a hub, a center for tourist attraction. Downwind runway 19, 3 masts. Gabatura for the last 30 years. a mast on finals. We can go on and on until tomorrow. When you ask, how are these masts put in? They will tell you, we carried a Kcaa inspector, and he gave the green light to go ahead. I'm telling you sincerely, when the bad weather strikes and passengers are killed approaching or flying around these airfields, the legal section of Kcaa better take note. They would like to be compensated. But since we must be part of the solution, what I'm saying is, Kcaa, please, set up a committee. Go around all the masts in this country, and we don't want to know who made the wrong decision, but at least let's rectify them. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. I think your sentiments do not need much emphasis. But the issue of obstructions around aerodromes fall under the aerodrome design and operation, and I think that's one issue we are keen on. You will see what provisions we've put in place, and we'll also follow your advice of conducting a survey around and noting the issues. Okay.
My question was on Regulation 33, if Teresa can display, because Kcaa had requested if the mandate of the authority comes from Kcaa or the ministry. And in your response, you have just added where necessary. So to us, I think our issue has not been adequately addressed. I submit.
I think, Mr. Mia, thanks so much for the question in terms of charges. My understanding of this provision is that we recognize the role of the ministry. But I think you are also privy to the requirement whereby some operators were levying charges that were exorbitant. And I know you have history of some information or in terms of matters that have been in before a court of law in terms of determination of these issues. So the provision of this particular regulation is giving that the authority may come in cases where these particular charges that have not been regulated or been guided by the Ministry of Transport, and this is the provision that is there. Notwithstanding subregulation 1, the authority may when necessary prescribe the maximum charges, and this is why this provision is in. So I don't know whether the concern of Kcaa, we know the ministry is responsible, but there are cases, especially for private operations, and where operators may levy that charges and the authority may need to come in. I don't know whether that response is sufficient to your concern. Maybe.
Thank you. I think that is a very important question about charges in the airfields and aerodromes that are being run actively within the country. And it is good to know that there is a regulation about maximum charges. But what about who is the operator? There are two types of airfields in this country. That is the private airfields and the public airfields. And according to Kcaa Act, and I think they are here, all public airfields are actually supposed to be managed by Kcaa. So now that we are talking about aerodromes here and the charges and regulations, would you believe that the whole function has actually been taken over by county government? Aviation industry is not devolved function. But you go and ride in Kcaa and you'll be charged a landing charge that is much higher than even Wilson Airport or JKIA by a non-compliant person, which is the county government. County government cannot run the aviation industry unless there is a good agreement between Kcaa that they have been leased to them, and we would like to have that kind of evidence that is happening. 3,500 Kenya shillings for a landing of a Cessna in Kikro, I think it's out of this world, and the Kcaa actually should step in and make sure that the constitution is followed, that aviation is not a devolved function. It must be run by the ministry, Kcaa, and Thank you.
Kano, that is noted. I think is more of in support of the provision that you have provided. The Kenya Ports Authority representative, I believe you are okay with the response. No problem. I think we could have a side chat and possibly come up with the right response if it's not adequate. Captain Card, can you allow us to go for lunch, or we want to finish this?
Just a quick one for you, Chairman, Chairman of this session. I have I've been privileged to hear you talk about Kcaa and being concerned about safety of flight operations. Because at the end of the day, you as the regulator, you are the one who has the ultimate word on flight safety in this country. I just wanted to mention about the encroachment that is happening right now at Wilson Airport. Not other airports, because every airport is threatened at Wilson Airport. Encroachment of structures and developments that put the airport at risk. Encroachment that some have been approved by Kcaa that put the airport at risk. I find it very hard to believe that you have any concern for flight safety operations in Wilson Airport with the developments that are going on there, and you as the regulator, that you can take it upon yourself to go after Category E airports as a sign of trying to enhance safety with what is happening at Wilson Airport, and which is for all to see. So I want you to pay attention to the airport and to realize that your actions, maybe your comments, might not be taken seriously if what is happening on the ground does not reflect what you say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain, for the comments as regards the development of Wilson. We shall make a presentation possibly tomorrow on the Aerodrome design and operations regulations, where the regulation of structures and development is adequately covered. But what I can say at the moment, I think we are aware of these facts, and through the Office of the Director General, we have a committee that is incorporating various government agencies, and it was constituted last year, but due to COVID, I think there were challenges. We have had a session, and I think Kano can attest to this. We are bringing together a number of agencies. Some of these enforcement actions may not be able to be wholly undertaken by the authority, but we are bringing in the National Construction Authority, NEMA, the NMS, the County Government of Nairobi, and all the applicable government agencies, so that they can sit together and look at this particular issue and find a long-term solution. Yes, there could be a challenge at the moment, but the authority has taken measures to ensure that there is compliance with the existing regulatory provision. So your comments are noted, and we shall be able to provide necessary update as these particular actions undertaken by the authority materialize to tangible actions. Thank you so much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 5 minutes to 2 o'clock. We need to have lunch, then come back, and we are behind schedule. One of the regulations has not been reviewed, so we'll review it after lunch, and then combine with the other assignments that we have for after lunch. I'm informed that lunch is served on 3rd floor. It's called a Kcaa restaurant. So those of you who have meal vouchers, I think some vouchers were taken around. If you have them, you can proceed on to 3rd floor, where we'll have lunch. And then we should be back here by 2:45. That gives about 50 minutes of lunch, with an intention to see if we can clear the rest of today's bunch of regulations. So if you do not have a meal voucher, just pass by the registration desk. You'll be able to be issued one as we go out. Thank you very much.
Hello viewers, welcome to the 5th episode of the Kcaa Ask Your Aviator. My name is Flora Wakolo Kitao, a Chief Air Traffic Control Officer within the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. In this episode, we are celebrating the girl child as the globe celebrates the International Day of the Girl under UNICEF umbrella. It's about 25 years since the Beijing Declaration was adopted by the United Nations. And to celebrate the International Girl Child, we have 3 magnificent ladies who will be telling us their life in aviation so that the young girl out there can be encouraged and come and join this particular arena as some of us exit. Welcome. We have our first guest.
Hello viewers, my name is Beth Mengech. I am an Aeronautical Information Officer based at Kcaa.
Hello everyone, my name is Mary Kanuna Sindiga. I work at the East African School of Aviation, which is the training directorate of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, as a Chief Course Development Unit and ICAO focal point. Thank you.
Hello viewers, my name is Beth Mwakio, a Senior Air Transport Officer based at Kenya Civil Aviation Authority headquarters.
Thank you ladies. Now Mary, can you take us through your normal day routine at the East African School of Aviation?
Thank you, Flora. Actually, it's interesting you should ask because my days are as different as each day. Sometimes I don't know how it will look like, but anyhow, on a typical day, working day for me at the East African School of Aviation, I usually get there shortly before 8 a.m. and I start by looking at my emails. And this is very important for me because as an ICAO focal point, emails are the main model of communication and timeliness is of essence. So after I go through the emails, then I have a short briefing with my team, the course development team, we call it at IASA.
Hello viewers, welcome to the 5th episode of the Kcaa Ask Your Aviator. My name is Flora Wakolo Kitao, a Chief Air Traffic Control Officer within the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. In this episode, we are celebrating the girl child as the globe celebrates the International Day of the Girl under UNICEF umbrella. It's about 25 years since the Beijing Declaration was adopted by the United Nations. And to celebrate the International Girl Child, we have 3 magnificent ladies who will be telling us their life in aviation so that the young girl out there can be encouraged and come and join this particular arena as some of us exit. Welcome. We have our first guest.
Hello viewers, My name is Beth Mengech. I am an aeronautical information officer based at Kcaa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Kanuna Sindiga. I work at the East African School of Aviation, which is the training directorate of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, as a Chief Course Development Unit and ICAO focal point. Thank you.
Hello, viewers. My name is Beth Mwakio, a Senior Air Transport Officer based at Kenya Civil Aviation Authority headquarters.
Thank you, ladies. Now, Mary, can you take us through your normal day routine at the East African School of Aviation?
Thank you, Flora. Actually, it's interesting you should ask, because my days are as different as each day. Sometimes I don't know how it will look like, but anyhow, on a typical day, working day for me at the East African School of Aviation, I usually get there shortly before 8 a.m. and I start by looking at my emails. And this is very important for me because, as an ICAO focal point, emails are the main model of communication, and timeliness is of essence. So after I go through the emails, then I have a short briefing with my team, the course development team, we call it at IASA, where we look at the day's work in terms of what we need to do today, what we did yesterday, and any adjustments that we need to make. Thereafter, I get engaged in meetings where I'm either a member of a committee or a chair of a committee. And shortly after that, I brief my supervisor, who is the director of the East African School of Aviation. After that, I spend most of the day working on the course design activities that are our core mandate as a course development unit. And in between, I'll probably make consultations with several other teaching departments whom we guide in terms of course design, course review, and any other activities that they may require from us. Then in the evening before I go home, I make sure I actually again go back to my emails, because there will be a lot of traffic there based on what courses we are teaching, or we are scheduling, or we are planning to schedule, and again respond to whomever has made contact with us. And that more or less wraps my day before I go home. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. No wonder the East African School of Aviation has been ranked highest in Africa. Beth, kindly take us through the normal day at JKIA Aeronautical Information Office.
At the JKIA briefing office, we work in shifts. So my day typically begins either at 6:30 a.m. or at 6:30 p.m. So when I get to work, the first thing I do is to go through the operations logbook to see everything that was recorded at the period when I was off duty. And then from there, I have a look at all the current NOTAM to update myself. From there, I take over watch. Basically, my job involves flight planning and pre- and post-flight briefing. So in flight planning, I accept flight plans from pilots or their representatives, either online or they bring the copy physically. Before I accept this flight plan, I have to check whether it conforms with the ICAO formats. I have to check for accuracy, because whatever I sent out has to be very accurate. Yeah. And then I need to check also whether it complies with the national and international regulations. And then from there also, I transmit the flight plan. I transmit it to all the ATS units, all the search and rescue units, including those units along the route of the flight, the destination, and the alternates. And when I'm transmitting this information, I have to make sure that I maintain the integrity of the information. And then after that, I also do pre-flight and post-flight briefing of the crew. And I do this while we ensure that we maintain the requirements set up in the QMS, that's the quality management and the safety management system. Yeah, that's basically how my day goes.
Quality does it. Yeah. Thank you. Mwakio, what is air transport all about? And if you can take us through a normal day for you in the office.
Thank you, Flora. Air transport is about the movement of passengers, cargo, and mail by aircraft from one point to the other. But in Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, air transport is a department which is mandated with the economic regulation and facilitation oversight, which is Annex 9 of the ICAO annexes. In my daily duties, or in my normal day in the office, I wouldn't very much be strict with exactly what I do because it's very dynamic and every new day is a working day. Every day is different from the other. But normally what we anticipate to do in the office is processing of commercial air service license requests from the operators. We also do lease approval. That is the lease agreements between airlines are brought to our office for approval. We issue authorization, which is short-term, normally fondly known as ad hoc permits, which are issued to foreign registered aircraft that intend to either overfly or land in Kenya for commercial purposes or for technical purposes. We issue them with special authorization because they are not licensed by the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. The other key function in air transport is inspections at the airport. This is to ensure that there is smooth facilitation of passengers, cargo and mail through our airport.
Thank you. Mary, now, how did you find yourself in aviation?
It's quite interesting, actually. Incidentally, I actually never set out working in aviation. I worked in public universities for several years, and I thought I was comfortable. Then, due to some personal incident, I actually made up my mind to shift or to change my career. But I didn't even choose aviation. You would be surprised. But in that period of time when I was actually contemplating what to do, Kcaa advertised a position at the East African School of Aviation. And surprisingly, I felt like it was meant for me. The advert was for me. I was so convinced that I made the requirements that although I had no clue where Kcaa was, I didn't know, I didn't have a clue. But I was so convinced that I actually meet the requirements and I would be the right candidate for the job that I called them up. When I saw the advert, I looked for the contact address, I called the HR. And they asked, what do you want? I said, I want that job, but I need to know what you're looking for and who you are before I can apply. They were actually surprised. They laughed at me. I won't name the names, but some of them are still here. And they said, oh, we've never had somebody calling us to ask us about information on a position that they want to apply for. I said, well, I'm calling. But they were good enough, they gave me the information, and it only served to convince me more that I actually am the right candidate, or I was the right candidate for that position. I applied, did interviews, and forgot about it. Then 1 month after my interview, I got a call from Kcaa, and I had been given the job. So as I say, I joined the East African School of Aviation as a senior examinations officer. I was already working as an assistant registrar examinations at one of the public universities. So for me, it was like, just fitting in. But I was wrong. I found it a totally different environment. But I came in anyhow, and I got interested. And over the years, I have shifted and become something else, other things. I play other roles, not the exams role that I came to play initially. And I'm still here, and expect to still be here. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's a girl child. Huh? And Beth, as a little girl, did you ever see yourself in this profession, that is aeronautical information services? And what drew you to the profession?
Well, actually, no, I didn't even know there was something like that which existed. So what happened, after I had graduated from the university, I was looking for a job. So one day, as I was going through the newspaper, I saw the advert, Aeronautical Information Services. So what was interesting about it was that I actually met the requirements for this job, but I had no idea what it was. So I started researching about it. The more I researched, the more interested I became. So I decided to apply, brought in my application, and I was shortlisted. I came for the aptitude test, and some few months later, I believe a year later, I received a call, and I was told I had been successful. I should report at the East African School of Aviation as an AIS trainee to be trained to become an AIS officer. I stayed at the East African School of Aviation for 1 year, and then I was deployed to JKI as an AIS officer.
Wow. Yeah. Most people just stumble into aviation. How about Makio? Why did you join aviation?
Thank you very much. Having grown up in the village, I knew very little or almost nothing about aviation. The only thing I can relate with then is an aircraft just passing by, and we would sing as village girls or boys to send greetings. In our minds, we knew that aircraft will somehow get our greetings to whoever we were sending the greetings to. But after Form 4, there were adverts by the Public Service Commission for interviews. And there was the stereotype that unless you have a godfather or you know someone somewhere, you cannot get through. However, my mother motivated me to go for the interviews. So I did photocopies of my certificates and everything else that was required. And surprisingly, the last interview I took was from the Ministry of Transport, then the Ministry of Transport and Communications. I had done all the rest that I was interested in. And on my way home, I saw a post on the electricity post, an advert by the Ministry of Transport and Communication. And when I read the post, I could not understand what they were advertising. Because Ministry of Transport and Communication, and then below there was Aeronautical Communications Officer, there was Aeronautical Information Officers, then there was Air Traffic Controllers. I could not connect Ministry of Transport and Communication with Aeronautical Air Traffic Controllers or Aeronautical Communications Officers. Therefore, I decided to go in and make an inquiry. When I went in, they told me they had only interviewed 2 people, and they were all men, and they were looking for a lady. And I said, here I am. I sat for the interview. Interestingly, I did not answer any question related to aviation. They ended up asking me where I went to school, and if they were to give me the opportunity, I would join, because I had already qualified for university. And I made a commitment that if they take me in, I will be able to join the Ministry of Transport and Communication. I had no idea that it was an aviation-related job, because I was seeing Ministry of Transport and Communication was all about roads, according to me. So after I did the interview, 2 weeks later, I received a letter telling me to report at the East African School of Aviation. Again, the name East African really drifted my mind. I could not connect East African School of Aviation with Kenya and the Ministry of Transport and Communication. However, we decided to come a week earlier to find out what it was all about. And we met with the chief instructor. Then he took us through the journey of how you go through the training to become an aeronautical communications officer and what happens after you have finished your training. The fact that we were to be absorbed by the defunct Directorate of Civil Aviation really motivated me, and that is how I decided to join aviation. Thank you.
Wow. So parents out there, let us encourage our daughters to take up whatever opportunities that come their way. Now, Mary, what are some of the courses would you recommend to young women to take up in aviation?
Thank you, Flora. Actually, it's good we have this forum to talk about the courses that one can take if they aspire would like to have a career in aviation. Don't wait like me until you are midway through your career to become an aviator. The time is now. But aviation is very dynamic. And really, Flora, what I would say is this. It's not so much about the courses that one should take. I would advise that one selects a career path. You choose a path that you want to follow in aviation. But that may not also be possible, because sometimes when we are out there, we don't even know which careers exist. Fortunately, ICAO has done a lot of work towards solving that problem. There are courses that actually guide you in terms of what aviation is all about and what the jobs are like, what options you have, and that to me would be a very good starting point. So you choose a career path after probably doing a bit of research, because aviation, as I said, is a club. It's like when you're an outsider, you really don't know what goes on in there. But even if you don't get the full information, a career path is important because it will actually guide you in terms of what courses you can take. But then, as I said, since ICAO has come up with a solution, and the solution is actually a very nice course which is available online called the Aviation Fundamentals, Fundamentals of Aviation. Fundamentals of Aviation is actually a course for anyone, everyone, who would like to know what aviation is all about, what opportunities are there, what activities are carried out, and everything, anything you'd need to know from a layman's perspective. Their whole air transport and air navigation is covered from the perspectives of an outsider, somebody who is looking for information. And since there are no prerequisites really for this course, so long as you can read and write English, our girls, young girls completing Form 4, should actually start by taking this course, whether you want to join aviation or not, because it's an eye-opener. It kind of gives you the whole world of aviation, and you can choose what you want. But other than that, as I said, a career path is important because there are courses that are in synergy, give you the trajectory that you need to get to the next level and even the highest level. So I would say you choose a career path and then pick a combination of courses that add value to your chosen career path. For instance, if you leave the aviation fundamentals alone, for example, if you decide to be a flight dispatcher, like what we teach at the East African School of Aviation, don't just take the flight dispatch course. Diversify, ground yourself in all aspects that are related to a flight dispatcher's job. For instance, don't just do the diploma in flight operations officer. Add cargo, add security, add safety, because it's not going to be possible for you to just work as an island within a certain small area. But then be ready also to keep learning. Aviation is very dynamic. You be a full-time student because changes will come and you need to keep up with the changes. So I would say, to answer your question directly, choose a career path, go for the core courses that are related to that career path, but also pick the main aviation, mainstream aviation aspects like security, cross-cutting, like safety, cross-cutting, and don't forget to add some management training, because should you become a supervisor, for instance, you need to know how to say sorry and thank you to the people you are supervising as you motivate them. Thank you very much.
Wow. So viewers, you can see aviation is actually quite wide. Unlike the myth we had before, when you talk of aviation, one would only think about the pilot and the air traffic controller. So you can see aviation is wide and therefore is quite accommodating to any girl, depending on what they like, on what they are passionate about. Now, Beth, what was your education journey like?
I believe my education journey was the typical 844. I started my primary school in a school in Umoja. I can't say it was eventful since I went to school with the same kids I grew up with in the estate. But I remember in primary school I was good in math and actually wanted to become a pilot. Then I went to high school. Now in high school, this is where dreams change. So in high school, I realized I loved computers and also I was still good at math. So I decided when I go to university, I'll actually pursue a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. So I finished high school, went to the university, I did my computer science, I finished. After that, I applied now to join Kcaa, and I had to report at the East African School of Aviation. EASA is quite different from what you're used to in the normal 844 system, from the method of teaching, from the people you interact with. It was a totally different experience, but it was an interesting journey. From there, I started working, and then, as Mary says, in aviation, you also need a management course. So when I started working, after I gained some experience, I decided to join the University of Nairobi to pursue an MBA in strategic management. So that's where I am right now.
Great. Mwakio, how about you? How was your journey like, your education journey like?
Thank you, Flora. My education journey was just like any other normal girl child in Kenya. Both my primary school and secondary school were back in the village. I came to Nairobi when I was admitted to the East African School of Aviation to do the Aeronautical Communications Operations course, which took around 3 years. Immediately after we finished our college life, we were taken in by the defunct Directorate of Civil Aviation Authority at the entry level. After having worked for some years, I got settled in marriage, and then I decided to go back to education. I did undergraduate course at the Kenya Methodist University. I did my master's in business administration at Kenya Methodist University. I took a break. Then after some time, way back in 2014, I decided to come back and do master's in business administration, but this time I was focused in aviation management, which was being offered by Moi University. Then from there, I'm still in the journey of learning. Like Mary has said, you have to keep on learning. I am currently pursuing my PhD in strategic management, and save for Corona, I would be finishing my thesis. Thank you.
Oh, it will come to pass. And parents, like you've seen, education is key and it has no end. Mary, maybe you can guide us on how one needs to do to position themselves for a career within the aviation. What advice would you give some of the young graduates when they are joining aviation, how they will be able to position themselves in a career in aviation?
Thank you, Flora. Now, just like I mentioned in my earlier comments, aviation is quite dynamic. However, that doesn't mean one cannot actually pick a few things that they want to concentrate on. And like I said earlier, one needs to select, determine what direction they want to go, because you can't be everything. But that said, the actually key for me is be the best in that which you choose to become. And being the best doesn't mean that you get to actually work so hard. You work smart. Find out the latest in that field. Find out the players, the main players, in terms of what are they doing, how do they do it. And also research and find out the networks that exist, professional networks that have to do with the line you have chosen. That way, you get to know when opportunities occur, you get to know what other people are doing, and you get to know also how the best do what they do. So for me, it's grounding yourself properly in terms of your training, in terms of your skills and abilities, and also keeping tabs on what is happening in that chosen line. You can imagine qualifying probably as probably a safety management practitioner, and then you find that by the time you want to move ahead, there is a certain core training that has been introduced, but you haven't taken it, so you'll miss out. So positioning means getting to the bottom of your chosen line in aviation. What is happening? Who are doing it? Where are they doing it? And what do I need to be like them, for instance? What training do I need? And more importantly also, what networks do I need? And by networks, I mean the forums where these issues are discussed, like seminars, like workshops, and now we do not have an excuse with the digital technology. You have everything at your fingertips. So make sure you are at the forefront and don't shy away from actually contributing in forums where those items and issues are discussed, so that you put yourself out there. Don't sit back. No one will know what you know, what you can do, who you are, if you don't get out there. So participate as much as possible in webinars, participate in professional discussions, and then follow through. Now, most of the times what I find is that ladies, we get lost somewhere along the way. We are wives, we are mothers, we are career women. And sometimes we are not able to balance between all those conflicting roles, if I may call them that. But even as you mother, even as you wife, even as you're a career woman, you have the you. take that which you're passionate about, because when the going gets really tough, it's your passion that will keep you going in your chosen path. So that's what I would say for now, Flora.
Oh, thank you. So, ladies, you've heard it. Mothers, let us encourage our girls. So, and particularly take advantage of the fact that God has wired the woman in such a way that they can multitask. And we should really utilize that gift from God. And I think Mary has alluded to that. Okay, Beth, what does the theme, My Voice, Our Equal Future, mean to you?
What the theme means to me is that we should all use our voice to create awareness. We have girls, young girls out there in different parts of the country who don't have access to information. So I believe all of us who are able to should be able to create awareness, try to talk to people, and try and inform them of the opportunities that exist for them. Yeah.
Thank you. And Mwakio, you just heard what Mary told us about, balancing work and, motherhood. How many years have you been in this profession, and how do you balance between work and family?
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, I'm a mother of two beautiful girls. And my years of experience in Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, I would quantify them together as 25 years. I had 12 years in the Air Navigation Services Directorate as an aeronautical communications officer. Then in 2007, when opportunities in the Aviation Safety and Security Regulations Directorate opened up, I jumped ship and I joined the regulatory wing of the authority. So for the last 13 years, I've been working in the air transport department. In this department, there is a lot of traveling, which I very much enjoy, internationally, regionally, and locally. However, as a mother, when I'm flying out there, I carry my babies with me. And I keep talking to them because I do not want to be away there making a name while way back at home, the same name is getting spoiled. So I try to balance. I keep in touch with them wherever I go. I do homework checkups wherever I am. We were once told that we are telephone mothers, which I accept. But at some point, you just have to be. You have to make a call and know, did you do your homework? Did you pass your tests? Because I need the job and I need the family. In spite of the challenges we face as ladies, I would very much want to say I enjoy the support from my family. They understand what I do. And when I get home, we spend quality time with each other. So I make sure even my friends get the attention they deserve, despite the fact that I have a tight schedule and sometimes I'm away from home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So viewers, like you've heard Beth Mwakio narrate to us, as women and girls, we are not out to outdo each other. We are there to collaborate with one another so that we can make this world a better place. As a young person, Mary, if you can just tell us the challenges you have navigated in the course of your career.
Thank you, Flora. Now, aviation is really no different from several other careers because as women, we actually probably face more challenges than men, I would say. However, in aviation, there are some kind of special challenges that one gets. Now, for me personally, coming from outside aviation and joining aviation in a technical line, getting acceptance was a big, big, big challenge. And actually what saved the day is that I kept insisting. I knew what I wanted, and I said I want to do this. At some point, actually to be exact, When I wanted to change from examinations management to curriculum development in aviation, I happened to be the only officer who was nominated for not nominated for the official training. Fortunately for me, some nominees turned down the offer. So I actually wrote a 5-page memo to my then supervisor explaining why and how I meet requirements to be in that group. And sure enough, she told me then, we'll communicate with ICAO and see whether they can allow you. So she told me, draft the write-up that we sent to ICAO. I did. And here I am today as a senior course developer in aviation. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the challenges will be there. And the most critical one is gaining access, initial entry. That is something that every one of us has to work on. But work on it from the perspective of being knowledgeable, being skilled, and doing what is required. So the challenge would be like what people think about you. So don't let anyone define you. Go for your goals. You know what you want. Make sure you put yourself in order and do what you need to do properly so that at the end of the day, it's a question of the technically competent aviator, the incoming aviator are at par. That is what will carry you forward. The other challenge I have had to navigate is that aviation is still a male-dominated industry, very male-dominated industry. Most of the times you'll find yourself in forums, in working groups, where you are the only lady. There is temptation to feel intimidated. There's temptation to feel like, I can't do this. But with adequate preparation on your part, make sure you bring to the table something equitable, if not better, to what the male counterparts bring on the table. And I can assure you, eventually, you gain not only their respect, but the acceptance and respect of the industry at large. That is something we have to do as ladies. Men may get it a little easier, but probably when you're a lady and also coming from outside, you should actually be clear what you want to do, how you want to do it, and make sure you actually do it. To become competent and qualified in your chosen line, you require multiple trainings. And incidentally, training in aviation tends to be competency-based, therefore, it will be in small bits and pieces. So you will need to do several multiple trainings, and it doesn't come easy. So costs. Fortunately for me, working for the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority at the East African School of Aviation, the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has supported us in terms of training. I can't complain. But then also access to training has also been a challenge because aviation is global. So you will need to be trained equally, as equal as any other player in any other part of the world. And also the requirement for currency. I happen to be in an area called instructing, for example, in aviation. My qualification as an instructor in certain courses is not for life. I'm not a teacher, I'm an instructor. So every now and then you have to renew your currency. And what it means is that you either have to conduct the training under supervision externally. Somebody needs to pay for that. And that becomes a challenge because it keeps costing either you or your employer. But all in all, I wouldn't change my career now that I'm in aviation. Thank you.
Oh, great. Now, Beth, what are some of the key highs in your career?
There's one particular high that I can think of. There's this course that was being introduced at the East African School of Aviation that is called Aeronautical Information Exchange Model. So to do this course, they required people who had an IT background. So I was fortunate enough to be nominated to be in the first class. So on completion of this class, I was chosen to be an instructor for the same course. So this was a high because I only had 2 years experience. And the people I was required to teach had more than 10 years experience. So that was a high. The fact that I was considered to be an instructor and they felt that I was competent enough. So that was a high.
That's great. Okay, Mwakio, what is important for you to be current and always alert in your profession?
Thank you. Aviation is very dynamic, Flora, you know that. And in every new day, there are challenges, there are emerging trends in aviation. The department in which I sit is one department that receives it all. Before you join aviation as a commercial operator, you must come through our department to get your air service license. Therefore, we receive all sorts of challenges, ideas, questions, because the business person out there has an idea that the authority does not have. And they come to ask, can we have this, can we get this? Therefore, you just have to keep current with the emerging trends for you to be able to be at pace with the industry changes. I will say that COVID-19 brought in the concept of working at home. And to many people, it sounded out of place. But in our department, we were celebrating. Reason being, we had introduced the Advanced Air Transport Information System. And therefore, that system enables me to work from wherever I am. When we were told you can work at home, it was easy for me to sit there, process all the ad hoc permits, allow the aviators to fly from one point to the other. When the airspace was closed, it was not closed to everybody. Cargo flights were taking off and landing. Expatriation flights were going on every now and then. Medical evacuations requests were coming in every now and then. And therefore, the system helped us. And I was looking at it and saying, if that technology was cutting across in the entire authority, then so much would have been going on as much as we had closed the airspace. So keeping current has really seen air transport placed at a different level.
Wow. Thank you. And Mary, what are some of your career milestones?
Now, much as I started as an underdog in aviation, I would say I've done quite well, with due respect to everybody. Now, from 2012 to date, I am an ICAO qualified curriculum designer in aviation. And then, apart from that, remember, I came in as an examinations officer, senior examinations officer. Currently, since 2015, I'm Chief Curriculum Development and Research at the East African School of Aviation. And then working closely with ICAO on several of the projects and programs that are implemented by IASA, I was able to be in the team that got IASA approved as or designated first as a Train Air Plus full member. Train Air Plus program is a global network of training organizations in aviation that actually offer competency-based training. So there's an assessment process by ICAO, and if all the parameters are in order, they are met, then the organization gets certified. So I was in the group, the team leader actually, of the group that got IASA to full membership of that program. And then 3 years ago, we were able to upscale that. We upgraded IASA into a regional training center of excellence. And that is because the course development unit, which I had, with the course development team, was able to do what ICAO requires, design globally acceptable courses to ICAO standards. Currently, we have 5 of those courses in the ICAO library, and they are used for global training. We have also had them bought by different CAAs, including Thailand Civil Aviation Authority, to close some significant findings that they had. Now, for me, that is quite an achievement because it's very few training organizations in the world that are able to produce those standardized training packages to ICAO specifications and standard and acceptance, multiples like we have. We have 5 of them, and we are completing the 6th one this month, as it were. Now, apart from that, in 2014, I qualified to become an ICAO expert standardized training package validator. So what that means is that when civil aviation training organizations design training programs, then I'm contracted by ICAO to assist them to package their trainings to the required standards and specifications by ICAO. So far, apart from working with my organization, Kcaa and IASA, on the same, I've also worked with Morocco, I've worked with Mauritius, I've worked with Incheon Airport Aviation Academy and Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority Training School, to name just a few, as an expert standardized training package validator. Then other than that, I'm also an ICAO qualified instructor for 3 ICAO courses, which I actually conduct annually at IASA once, and then globally for different states on a need basis. The last one I conducted was in August this year, online. We have transitioned to online now with the COVID-19 situation for Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, but with participation globally from the UAE, from Fiji, from Thailand, and also from Ghana itself. Now, I'm also the ICAO focal point for the East African School of Aviation, and this is something that has come about because of the work we do in terms of coordinating, collaborating, and ensuring that all the trainings that are required from ICAO by different players within Kenya and beyond are not only scheduled, programmed accordingly, but also we are able to link up with the qualified instructors for that process. And then the last year, I have been presenting papers for ICAO in different forums as a presenter, but I found a different milestone last year coming my way, because last year I did not present a paper. I was a moderator at the Global Aviation Trainer Plus and Symposium in New Delhi. I moderated a panel, which was another milestone because I've been a presenter most of the time, but this time round I managed a panel. I moderated a panel. So I would say aviation has been good. I would say that any of us ladies can actually start from anywhere. I joined aviation as an adult. I had already put in some 30 years work at the university by the time I joined aviation. But it's a new field. It called for retooling, retraining, but you can still move. There's still space for you to move in any direction you want. You can move. So any of us can do it, regardless of when and where you start. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, you've just had Mary's journey. Now, maybe you can tell the viewers if you have been mentored in your career.
Yes, I have been mentored. In my department, Aeronautical Information Services, the ladies, we are lucky because the top management in the department is made up of women, and they encourage an open door policy. So in case you have any questions, you need any advice, you can just walk in and you'll be guided. So I can say, yes, I've been mentored.
That's good. Now, Mary, what is the percentage of women taking up aviation courses, if you can tell the viewers? And maybe to add on that, what do you do to attribute to this?
Thank you, Flora. The East African School of Aviation is a training directorate of Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. And at this school, we handle both the ab initio training for those who have just completed O-levels, and in-service training for professionals like Beth and Beth, who are in aviation already. So the proportion of women, or girls for that matter, in training is a reflection of what is in the industry, really. However, what we have at the school is that some of the courses which appear to be more attractive maybe, or they seem to be women-oriented, like cabin crew training, attract a higher number of girls or ladies for trainees than any other. But when you go to the technical courses like aeronautical engineering or even safety, the number dwindles. I do not have the current numbers right now because, but for the last few years, the girls in any of the courses, apart from cabin crew, travel and tourism, the IATA courses for travel and tourism, and air cargo and dangerous goods, the number of ladies tends to be below 20%. If you go to aeronautical engineering, it's not uncommon or unusual to find, like in telecommunication engineering, you have one lady or none. It's not unusual. But the numbers are always, they've never hit 50-50, except, as I said, for cabin crew and maybe travel and tourism, the IATA courses. The rest never go beyond 20 would be once in a while. Now, what I think is that we do not have a clear-cut policy in terms of allocating slots to girls in these courses. And now that we are getting participants or trainees for ab initio, the Form 4 leavers are coming through the COOPs. The placement authority probably will need to put our voice out there for aviation specifically, because girls and women seem to be endangered, according to me. So we probably need to go the affirmative way, officially and systematically, such that when we have an intake, even if it's going to be done through COOPs, can we lobby to have a situation where the girls are given slots or chances deliberately? And I say so because when the results come out from KCSE, the girls seem to do quite well, reasonably. Over the years, the performance has been improving. But this performance is not translating into numbers in our trainings. In my view, the problem is a little way far from the intake. It goes further. Right at the school level, when they're doing their training or their classes at Form 4, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM, they probably give up too early before they even find out what is in store for them going forward. Such that now when you talk of engineering, they shy away from it, because they shied away from the technical subjects in school, the science subjects in school that would have given them confidence to actually join this kind of level. So I think we need to come up with a lobby group. Frola, it's a high time that in Aviation we start talking about women, about girls, about ourselves, and probably picking on what exactly the gaps are. Where did it start raining on us? What is not right? Or maybe everything is right, but what are we not doing? And then so that